Happy Friday, everybody. And boy, do we have a lot to get on to today. Let's start with last night's football game. We had the Lions upsetting the Kansas City Chiefs in a very entertaining game. And 2021, it's 21-20, final score. Lions win. We saw Mike Tirico, of course, and Chris Collingsworth on the call of the game. For the most part, it was fine. Little weirdness to me as to, and I'm not sure why, but I don't understand why you have to do pregame and postgame and halftime reports from the field with all of your talent. They could have been in New York. There was no need to take them to Kansas City, but hey, all in all, it was a good telecast, and so we'll see them again on Sunday night. So until then, we got tons of stuff going on today. We got college football that's being played tonight, which includes a Big 12, Big 10 matchup. And we've got the ongoing Disney and charter issues. We have U.S. Open this week. So there's tons of stuff going on right now. And let's get to it. All right, let's start with the football for this evening. Okay. Football for this evening. It's Indiana State at Indiana. That game is 7 p.m. kick on the Big Ten Network. Pat Boylan and Brock Van Vereen. I'm sorry. Then there's Kansas and Illinois. It's a 7:30 game. ESPN2. Arnish Schaff and Andre Ware on the call for that game. So you've got, in the case of Indiana, a cross-state rival, but an FBS cross-state rival. And then you've got Illinois and Kansas. That's your Big 10, Big 12 setup. That's on ESPN. Armish Schaff and Andre Ware on the call for that one. So we had one last night. Now we got two today, and then we got a whole slew of them on Saturday, which we'll get to. But those are your college games for this evening. We will have, there's going to be tennis, of course, all day today as they work out the semifinals for the men's side of the draw. And then, of course, the women's side of the draw has already been set. So the final will be tomorrow. There was quite the little dust up there yesterday at the tennis center when they had a 50-minute delay due to a protest, which everything was peaceful, thank goodness, and the players didn't seem to be too upset about it, and the network carried it well. So good on them, and we'll see what's going on from that standpoint. Let's take a look at what we got in the way of questions as we get started here. All righty. Let's see. We got, okay, these are, Nate wants to know, okay, this weekend, of course, TCU, Baylor are playing different teams, but he says that both have been good football programs in the state of Texas and better than Texas A&M and Texas for at least a decade. All right. Well, we'll see about that. Texas takes on Alabama. They're ranked 11th, and Alabama's ranked 3rd. That game's tomorrow in prime time, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Chris Vallacher, Herb Street on the call. Let's see what we got here from Pat Bowen. Pat, what do you want to talk about? He's talking about having to do with the new potential merging of conferences, and said that he would like to see the Mountain West merge with the Pac-12, which is actually the Pac-2. It's a reverse merger. Honestly, I could see it happening. It's going to take a long time, though, a very long time. There's a lot of hurdles to jump to get that done. But hey, Patrick, to keep the name alive, I get it. And so yeah, I can see them giving it a try. Whether it comes to fruition or not, we don't know. But it looks like that both Mountain West and Pacific, the old Pac-12 wants to work that out. So we'll see how they get it done. Long time before that's going to happen. All righty. All right, Nate, what you got? You're talking about SMU getting a $200 million grant from their boosters to carry them through the time. Yeah, that may actually that would take them in the ACC probably 32 million. I'm sorry, 22 million. 22 million on a seasonal basis, which would put them approximately 10 million behind the others in the conference. But it's a good start and a whole lot better than what they were getting in the AAC, which is about $7 million. So they've got a, the folks at SMU are serious about their football and serious about making sure that that the Mustangs have whatever they need to compete in the conference. So understood. As I said, it's a nice little chunk of change. All right, let's take a second here while you're collecting your questions, and let me get some games. My best of. All right, let's see. Best noon games tomorrow. Here we go. Best noon games. Number 10 Notre Dame at NC State. That game will be on ABC with Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy on the call. Nebraska at number 22 Colorado. That's a noon kickoff. It's big noon. It's in Boulder, which means it's actually a kickoff of about 10 a.m. So early morning for Nebraska, Colorado players, fans, and everybody else. So, of course, there's a game between two teams that, probably back just a month ago, you wouldn't think that they would be a prime television show, but hey, it's Coach Prime. They won last week. Nebraska played well, but didn't win. So Colorado's playing their first home game. There was an announcement that tickets were going through the roof on this one. So there will be a full house in Colorado tomorrow for what will be a very early kick time for them, 10 a.m., 12, of course, here on the East Coast. That's the Fox game. Gus Johnson and Joe Klatt on the call. Then the intriguing one, that's ESPN at noon. That's Utah, number 12 in the country, taking on Baylor. That game's being played down in Waco. Bob Wischusen and on the call with RG3. So Robert Gritham gets to go back to his stomping grounds and where he won a Heisman Trophy. Quite frankly, Baylor probably could use RG3 quarterback at this point in time. Utah played well. They beat Florida. Good defense, just enough offense. I don't think Cam Rising is going to start tomorrow. They're going to use that two-headed quarterback monster that they used against Florida probably. But if they can get 2-0 by beating Baylor, then Utah's in a pretty good position moving forward. So, because then they can bring Cam Rising in for next week's Utah State game and Weber State game and not really have to worry about him getting banged up. So that would be it. So those are our three highlight games for noon tomorrow. And if you have other thoughts, let me know about them. Okay. All righty. So let's go to. Okay. Let's go to Bob B. Army to the ACC is a no-brainer. It will keep the contract intact and possibly increase values. Yes, Bob, you're right. I would agree with you. The thing with having the two service academies in the same conference for football is very good. It's a good situation. I don't know if you know this, but for probably 25 years or so, Army and Navy have competed in the Patriot League with their Olympic sports. So they've played each other in the same conference for a very long time. It just hasn't happened in the football side. So I would think it'd be good for Army to get into a conference because they are independent and it makes it difficult to schedule a lot of games that way. They have a wonderful following and they have a really good little stadium up there in upstate New York on the Hudson River, which is just beautiful. So yeah, it'd be great to see Army in the ACC, and I think they'll make it happen. It's going to take a little time. One of the things I keep getting asked this question: why don't Army and Navy end up in a Power 5 conference? Well, it's because Army, Navy, and Air Force are their budgets and the way they're run is unlike a private school or even a public institution. They are run out of the Pentagon, so they're is a way that they need to do that. That does not allow them to go and step up to play in a bigger conference, because the funding comes from the Pentagon for those athletic programs, and they want to keep cost certainty on it, and they want to keep it low. Now, that being said, obviously Army and Navy both play competitive schedules, which not only Navy plays in the AAC, but they'll play Notre Dame. Then they'll play other major schools around the country. So it's I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to get Army. And by the way, the thing that should be noted is that they will continue to play that Army Navy game, regardless of whether Army and Navy are in the conference year. It'll be played the week after all of the championship games for the conferences. So it's still going to be in that December slot. It's not going to move from there. So Army Navy will be played just like it always is during the kind of week between what we know as the end of the championships and the beginning of the bowl season. So that's going to be in December, and it's not going to change. And it'll move from time to time, from Philly to New York to Baltimore to Washington, and now they're even talking about moving it to the West Coast for some games, and possibly even Dallas. So Army Navy will stay as it should be, as its own little game to be played in the second week of December. Okay. All righty. Let's get back to the questions and see what we got going over in the chat room here. Yeah, let's see. We got hey, Wildcat Dave. He's getting me from Arizona. Good morning to you. All righty. You are definitely interested in seeing the game between Oregon and Texas Tech. Okay. That game is a primetime game, 7 o'clock on Fox. Mark Folo and Mark Heflin will be on the call. So 2 Marks in the booth for Fox tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, it should be a good game. I mean, Oregon scored, 70 plus points, and Texas Tech played pretty bad last week. So I think that Texas Tech has something to prove, and they're going to try to prove it against Oregon. Oregon, though, with Bo Nix and that potent offense, might be a little tough, but they're playing the game down in Texas, where it's going to be brutally hot, even though it's a 7 o'clock kick. So there you go with that. We'll see how that plays out, but okay, it's a good pick, Oregon and Texas Tech as your game of the day. All right, so good choice. Pardon me while you have a drink of water. Okay. And let's see. Sorry, there, Bob. Let me get rid of that and move on. Here's the 3:30 game, the best of them. Number 22, Texas A&M is at Miami. That's, as I said, 3:30 on ABC. Joe Testori and Jesse Palmer on the call of that game. Number 2, Michigan, 3:30 on CBS, taking on UNLV up at the Big House. And that's Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson on the call. Iowa State. That's always a good game. That's going to be on Fox, 3:30 with Jason Benedetti and Brock Hewitt. Yeah, some good game. That's the Texas A&M and Miami games. Intriguing. It could be a very good signature win for Mario Cristobal and his Cranes, and it could be a very good signature win for Texas A&M from Jimbo Fisher. So definitely an interesting game. Definitely an interesting game that's going to be played down at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. As for UNLV and Michigan, well, Michigan, they beat East Carolina last week, and it was kind of a choppy game. They basically shot themselves in the foot a couple of times, but they came away with a good result, and they only allowed 3 points to ECU. UNLV is not as good as ECU, but we have to see. Now, remember, Jim Harbaugh is still serving his suspension, so he will not be coaching tomorrow as Michigan takes them on. Brad Nessler, of course, Gary Danielson on the call for that game on CBS. And then, as I said a little bit, to me, another fun game is, of course, this rivalry game, and they always play it early in the season, which is unique but fun. And that's Iowa from the Big Ten, Iowa State from the from the Big 12, and Jason Benedetti, Brock Heward should do the honors on that game and do a good job for it. So that's your 3:30 games tomorrow. And so let's move over here for a second and see what we got going on in our comment section. And we got Michael Newton says that he is perfectly fine with the University of Washington in their point spread. He thinks that UW is going to win tomorrow, and good on you. I hope as a fan of the Huskies, you will you'll get a job done there. We'll see how that plays out. Just let me make a quick look at where Washington is playing tomorrow. We've got Washington. Where are you? They weren't one of my picks because they weren't playing anybody specifically of interest. So anyway, okay. Tulsa's at Washington, 5:00, and that game is on the Pac-12 network. Ted Robinson and Yogi Roth calling a game. So Tulsa, Washington. That game should be entertaining. 5:00 kick Eastern time, so that means that out west it'll be a 2:00 kickoff time. So there you go. All right, thanks for bringing it to my attention. I didn't highlight it because it was not necessarily to me one of the premier games, but it's a good game. So there you go. All right. Hey, Jerry, how you doing? What's going on? Good morning. I think the Pac-12 may have the strongest it's ever been. Egos killed the Pac-12. It was all about money. It was probably a combination of the two, Jerry. We had people who thought they knew what they were doing when they were negotiating a new TV deal. That didn't seem to work that well for them. And so kind of hubris got in the way. And when ESPN and Fox offered them $30 million per team, they turned it down because they thought they were worth $50 million a team. And that was based on what one school and one economics professor's evaluation was. And so, look, the conference shot itself in the foot all the way along. So from that standpoint, it was difficult for them to negotiate any kind of TV deal because they were continually overpricing themselves. Then when things got close to the end, they realized, okay, well, maybe we should take that kind of money. The money wasn't offered to them anymore. So at the end of the day, they only have themselves to blame for this. And, people and economists and all kinds of folks will write books on this and we'll learn a lot more about it. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry to see the Pac-12 go away. It is right now from top to bottom the strongest conference. It's also the most entertaining. So the irony of this being their final year is sad in that way. And but again, they have nobody to blame but themselves. They got themselves into it and they didn't get themselves out of it. So as much as I really am going to enjoy this final season, the idea that it is the final season is truly sad for a conference that had been around for 105 years. Okay. So, Jerry, what are you going to do? Right. But it's a good question. And thank you for it. Let's see what we got here. Hey, Immaculate, how you doing? And good to have you in the building and talking with us today. Hope everything in Arizona is cooler today. And I guess cooler is a relative term when you're supposed to have a high of plus 100, 104, 105 out there today. So by all means, stay hydrated and stay cool. So let's get Let's see what we got here. Going back to the chat room. And let's see what we got. Text, okay, UCF's in the house. They are saying that it should be an entertaining game. UCF against Boise State out on the Smurf turf. Yep, 7 o'clock, guys. For that game in Eastern Time, UCF makes the trip out to Boise, and Eric Collins and Devin Gardner on the call. That's an FS1 game. Should be interesting. By the way, CBS does have a primetime game tomorrow. It's UCLA at San Diego State, 7:30 kick. Rick Walsh and Aaron Taylor on the call of the CBS game, which, as I said, will be 7:30 UCLA at San Diego State. A few months ago, we thought that would be a Pac-12 game. We thought San Diego State was headed in that direction, but things didn't go that way. So San Diego State is still in the mountain. UCLA is on their way out of the Pac-12 to the Big 12. So there you go. And I know UCF is looking forward to Boise State. That could be a trap game. It could be something that Boise always gets up for the big games. They always play, tough. And I think they've got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder that they feel they deserved an opportunity to join the Big 12 as opposed to UCF. So that one might have a little bit more extra juice to it than might normally be. All righty. Let's go to some more. What you got there? Still warm here, but the end is in sight. Well, I hope so. I hope so. I know you guys have. If I saw it this morning, it was a record of like 54 or 55 days over 105 degrees out there in the Phoenix area. So wow, that's definitely hot. So yeah, man, and you guys, they're playing football in it, so that makes it even more crazy. All right, more crazier. Danny, what do you got? Danny says Illinois, Kansas strikes me as a great candidate for Saturday's regional coverage on ABC if ESPN goes that route again. Yeah, that would be a fun game. Kansas and Illinois, two good teams. Again, it's a Big 10 versus a Big 12 game, and that'd be next week. It wouldn't be this week because they're not playing each other this week. But yeah, I've got that. That sounds pretty good, Dan. I would not. I'd watch it. So let's see. All right. I think we may have started to see what will be a campaign against the NCAA to gain even more governance for the autonomy conferences with the UNC situation. Yeah, you're probably right. I think that the NCAA's effectiveness with monitoring what's going on with football, because again, remember, the NCAA doesn't really have any power over football. They have power over everything else, but the major, Division I as we know it, is really governed by the College Football Playoff group, and so the governance of the NCAA, while they can obviously levy fines of sorts and penalties of sorts, they can't. They just don't have the power to to quote unquote qualify a national champion. So in other words, the NCAA's national champion is an FBS and not a Division I school. So yeah, they don't have it, and you're right, they're slipping away. And frankly, it looks more and more like they're going to go to a pro model anyway. So there might be the best 40 or 50 schools in the country may break away from even their conferences and say, okay, look, the conference is going to stay the way they are, but we need to work this out. And especially if we get to a point, which is coming soon, where they will be paying the kids as the athletes as members of the school from a standpoint of employees. So that's going to get things very sticky very fast. I didn't think too much about it, but when Mac Brown went off, but when UNCAD jumped into the ring as well, it became a bigger deal. But Cunningham is a very sharp fellow. Yeah, he is. He absolutely is. And it's going to be very interesting how that whole Mac Brown, North Carolina thing works out. And Bubba Cunningham at one point last summer had put together a meeting with George Kliavkoff and ESPN where the three of them came very close to putting those two conferences together. The merger they knew would have taken a great deal of time, possibly 2 or 3 years, but they were exploring it and explored it all the way up until sometime early in March. So it was there, and the possibility of them going together was certainly something that everybody was looking into. So it was everybody in the ACC and the big in Pac-12 we're looking at. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to they go through on that. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on what happens here with Carolina and Mac Brown and the whole gang over there, because it's starting to get interesting. We'll see how that plays out. Let's take a quick look at we've looked at the noon games, we looked at the 3:30 games. Let's look at prime time. Number 13 Oregon and Texas Tech on Fox. Mark Folwell on the call. Mark Heinrich will be with him as color. Number 11 Texas, number 3 Alabama, 7 o'clock. The number 1 crew on ESPN, that's Fowler and Curb Street. We'll take that games. These are two marquee games without question. Texas Tech hoping to make a statement by beating an Oregon team that put up 80 points on their opponent last week. Texas A&M at Miami we talked about earlier, but this now is the Longhorns of Texas rating number 11. They can take on number 3 Alabama, and absolutely 100%. This is going to be a really a wild one. The game's in Tuscaloosa. The game was in was at a neutral site last time that they played last year. So yeah, and they're going to be part of the SEC landscape as Texas is joining with Oklahoma for next year. So Alabama and Texas, two of the blue bloods when it comes to that in all of sports, will be facing off to tomorrow night in should be a good game. ESPN's got the call, and Fowler and Curb Street. All right, let's see what. Very curious to hear if you're hearing anything about from the earbuds. Not really. The silence has kind of come over things right now. I think the last week when Stanford and Cal and SMU finally got their business settled in the ACC, I think that made for an opportunity for most of the folks in and around college football to take a deep breath and actually focus on the games. And I think that there's going to be, some time, hopefully a lot of time before we get into the next controversy. But Oregon State and Washington State are probably the ones to watch now, because are they going to do the reverse merger? Are they just going to go into the Mountain West, or are they, where's the money that the Pac, certainly owes them? So there's a lot of unanswered questions with that, but time's running out for Washington State and Oregon State. So we'll see how they play it. I don't think that they're going to get that reverse merger done. Probably if the Pac-12 wants to, allow its name to be used by the Mountain West, and the Mountain West, changes the name. It's not unprecedented, and it's also very recently what happened with the Big East. The Big East gave the name to the basketball schools, and then of course the football schools kept their names, and it became the of course the Americans. So it could be done. The name change could be done. So that would be something that'd be interesting. So we'll see. All right. How crazy would it be if Colorado had higher ratings in Texas, Alabama? You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I would not be surprised if they did. Colorado and Nebraska playing at 10 o'clock in the morning in Colorado. Think about it. I mean, think about how many people will be watching that game. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's quite possible that Colorado and Nebraska will get a better rating because last week it was kind of like snuck up on you, right? Remember? I mean, we had everybody knew Coach Prime and they were going to play against TCU, but no one knew they're going to win, and so that was a big plus. So from that standpoint, I think what Coach Prime has had now a whole week to be himself, and that's someone who 100% has no problem dealing with the spotlight. As a matter of fact, enjoys it. So I'm thinking that that's going to be the case. Now Nebraska has a national following. They're still Nebraska, which they've got the key name there. So they're blue blood, and so I honestly think it would not be. Now, remember in fairness here now, Texas and Alabama is going to be played in prime time. Okay. Texas and Alabama is going to be played in prime time. Colorado and Nebraska, you know, isn't. So we'll have to take a quick look and see, how that works out. But at the end of the day, it may very well do it. And would I be surprised? Not in the least. Not in the least. It's going to be fun to see how that Colorado team under Coach Prime with his with the wild weapons they have. Yeah, it's going to be it'll be interesting. That's for sure, and it could very well do it. And Colorado has double-digit range. I don't know about that. Okay, now I don't know that it's going to get to that. It could, but I don't know. I mean, FSU LSU, which was on a Sunday night last week, brought in 9-1, and in times it touched the 10 mark. That's a heavy lift for Colorado, especially when there's more traffic at noon tomorrow. There'll be at least 5 or 6 games. So for them to pull any, I mean, look, as I said, ratings wise, they'll do fine. Are they going to? I think that they'll certainly be north of 7, maybe get to 9, but certainly not going to. I don't see them getting double-digit ratings only because there's too much traffic at that time. There's too many other games being played. But hey, look, I've been wrong before. I know it's hard to believe, but there you go. If only if it only has the Notre Dame game as a series competitor in its time slot. True from that standpoint, but again, you're attracting some of the casual fans, okay, but you're also dealing with some fans who the problem with that is the Pacific time zone, some of the Mountain time zone is not necessarily going to be up watching Colorado, and I think that might be it. But as I said before, look, if they can get to a 7, which I think they can, which is what they got last week. If they can go by a 7, which I think they can do that, and move between 8 and 9, that would be quite a result, believe me. And that would begin to get them going. And obviously, they'll have some games later in the year that that can be seen in prime time. So there's a lot to be. If you're a Colorado fan, or if you're just a fan of Dion and the gang, then there's a lot to be looking forward to. That's for sure. So those are our primetime games. We do have some games which are going to be late night. Stanford at USC, 10:30 on Fox. Our buddy Tim Brando, Spencer Tillman on the call. That's an interesting one. Stanford, USC's 2-0. They played very well. They put a lot of points up. Stanford beat Hawaii last week in their opener. They played relatively well in that game. So let's see how that plays out. And SC and Stanford is a rivalry game. I know that most people know that USC and UCLA are cross-town rivals, but Stanford and USC has had a rivalry for a number of years, and that game is going to be airing on Fox at 10:30. California at Auburn, California. That game at 10:30, which is going to be on ESPN as Pac-12 After Dark. Dave Fleming, Brock Osweiler on the call. Oklahoma State, Arizona State on FS1 is Alex Faust and Petros Papadakis. I got to say, there's going to be some interesting things here. California is playing well. I mean, I honestly think that California is a bowl team, maybe even a little better, and they may even pull some upsets. Auburn going out to Strawberry Canyon in Berkeley to play this game is going to be interesting. But here's something that I hope they show. It's going to be a gold out, which means everybody's going to bring something gold and wave it, much like Penn State does with a white out. But the fun part is that at halftime, there's going to be a drone show above the stadium where 500 drones, it's God's honest truth, 500 drones will go into formation to make everything from, which would look like a band, like on the field, to basically, with lights and such, make all kinds of patterns, like the Golden Gate Bridge and some of the wonderful landmarks out there in Northern California. So I got to say, folks, that is definitely going to be a game that I'm going to hope that our friends at ESPN choose to stick around at halftime, if for nothing else, just to watch the drone show over the stadium, which may be one of the bigger draws to bring people out to the stadium to play Auburn. So California and Auburn, that game, as we said, 10:30. Dave Fleming, Brock Osweiler on it. Oklahoma State, OSU, Arizona State. That game's 10:30. FS1, Alex Faust and Petros Papadakis. Petros will be there. So some interesting games at that point in time. All right, let's go back here. I probably read about the media is hyping this up so much. I think general viewership numbers are going to be pretty big. We shall see. Yeah, absolutely. I think that people who didn't get to see the game, or for whatever reason didn't tune in, but then came in late, because that's what happened with the game itself. It kind of suddenly there was word of mouth or word of Twitter or whatever, where people couldn't believe what was happening, and they came to the TV set late. Well, this week, they know that Colorado pulled that upset. They know that Colorado is going to be playing at home. They know they're playing a Big Ten team. And so they're not surprised anymore. Everybody knows, if you didn't know before, you definitely know now. They have put together one heck of a team. Now, how many games we can see them win, how long this ability of the Pied Piper, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, can keep this stuff going, and his son, Shakir Sanders, play as well as he did. It's going to be interesting to see, because they put up some video game numbers last week on TCU. Let's see if they can do the same thing against Nebraska this week. As far as the ratings goes, as I said, I still think if they can do north of a 7, which what they did last week, maybe pick it up a little bit more to close to 8 or something like that, that would be an amazing result for Fox and for Colorado, and set them up for what likely is going to be a very entertaining Pac-12 schedule, which would be starting not long after this one. So anyway, no, nothing wrong with what you're talking there. I agree. There's a lot of hype. There's no question that there's hype for Coach Prime and for Colorado. And after one game, one game does not a season make, or one game does not a career make. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But for right now, the world is Deion Sanders and the Colorado Rockies, and the rest of us are just paying rent. So we'll see how that goes. By the way, if you guys could subscribe, hit that bell, and like us, that would be greatly appreciated. So greatly appreciated. All righty, let's go back to our Twitter board to find out what's going on there. Do I expect that? This is James Jones, and you're talking about, do I expect a reverse merger with the Pac, or are they just going to onboard these teams? I think honestly that what's going to happen here is Oregon State and Washington State will figure out how to get the payments that they are due from the Pac-12. And I think that they'll explore the merger. They'll explore what they need to potentially make a reverse merger with the Pac. But at the end of the day, maybe what they do is they just get the name, like I said, like the Big East got the name. I don't expect this conference to keep Power 5 status. That's just not in the cards for them. So we'll see. And is it going to give them a little more juice to get a little better TV deal because their TV deal's up in 2 years? Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. They may be. I'll tell you what. It may be able to bring it up to what the American is getting right now, which is 7 per team. And that wouldn't be a bad thing for the Mountain West. But there's a lot of moving parts. I'd like to see if Gloria Navarro is going to be the commissioner of the Pac-12. That would make sense. She's certainly proved herself to, in a short time, by the way, that she deserves that consideration. So there's a lot of moving parts there. I don't think, I'll say this, I don't think they're going to get the reverse merger on that. Could they end up with the Pac-12 name? That's possibly and probably something I'll tell you what, that's probably going to be easier to do than try to do a reverse merger. So one way or another, it really doesn't matter because Washington State and Oregon State is going to end up in the Mountain West or the Mountain West / new Pac-12, whatever it is. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, let's go back to the other side and see what we got going on this side of the fence. Okay, let's talk about the weekend. Couple of other things we need to get to. These are the early games on CBS as we kick off weekend 1 of the professional football season. These are the 1:00 games. Cincinnati is at Cleveland. Ian Eagle will be on the call with Charles Davis. Tampa Bay is at Minnesota. That's Anthony Cachalone and Tiki Barber, as well as Matt Ryan working the sidelines on that game. You've got Houston at Baltimore, Spiriditas and Adam Marcelletta. He's on that game. And then, of course, there's Tennessee at New Orleans. Those are your 1:00 games on CBS. An early season in-conference game where Cincinnati and Cleveland start out against each other. Tampa Bay and Minnesota, that should be interesting with Baker Mayfield starting for the Bucs and Kirk Cousins doing his best to prove that Minnesota could be the class of that division. Although I think Detroit made a very interesting statement last night with their win. Then you've got Houston at Baltimore. That's Baltimore. That could be a rainy day in Baltimore tomorrow. I'm sorry, Sunday, and with all the weapons that Baltimore has surrounded, themselves with, and they got Lamar Jackson under contract. So I think, that's going to be a very interesting game. Baltimore has got a very good football team, and we'll see how they fare against the Houston team at M&T Bank Stadium on Sunday. And then we've got Tennessee at New Orleans. That's a pretty interesting game. New Orleans' defense is very good. They are the favorites in that division in the South this year, and they come into it with a new fresh set of eyes. When I say fresh, it's not Derek Carr has been around, so he's not that fresh, but he's fresh to New Orleans. And so we'll see how Derek does in New Orleans, and that should be a lot of fun. So Tennessee at New Orleans, that game on one of the early games on CBS. Here's the later games, the 4+ p.m. games. Philadelphia at New England. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo on that call. So we'll see how New England is faring. We know how Philadelphia plays, so that should be interesting. Miami, who barely missed the playoffs last season, takes on the LA Chargers in Los Angeles. Kevin Harlan, Trent Green on that call. And in Vegas at Denver, Tom McCarthy, the pride of Philadelphia, along with James Lofton and Jay Feely on that one. So you've got those games coming up as the late games on CBS. Let's go to the Fox games. Fox games, San Francisco at Pittsburgh. Joe Davis, Gerald Johnson on the call for that one. That should be a real interesting football game. San Francisco, of course, coming. A lot of people like San Francisco this year for the NFC title game, and we'll see how that plays out. Joe Davis and Daryl Johnson on that call. Arizona at Landover to play Washington. Adam Amin and Mark Schlereth on the call for that game. This is supposed to be a make or break year for Washington. They brought in Eric Bieniemy as their offensive coordinator, and we'll see how things play out. Jacksonville at Indianapolis. Kenny Albert, our buddy on the call there, along with Jonathan Wilma. And, of course, in Carolina and Atlanta, which is another conference game. So there's your conference game from that standpoint in the NFC South. The late games on Fox, Green Bay at Chicago, Burkhardt and Olsen on that game. So that's their A game, Chicago and Green Bay. And the Rams and Seattle, that's Kevin Kugler and Mark Sanchez on the call for the Rams and Seattle. Those are the games. Now, remember that both Fox and CBS this year have the ability to change games. There will be games where Fox, who normally do all the NFC games, will have some games that are AFC, and conversely, so CBS will have some games that are normally seen, as the NFC, but they'll be on their network. So it's a little bit of moving around. We also have the first flex schedule at Thursday night. I don't think that's going to be used at all. I think the coaches go crazy for that. So I don't think we're going to see a flex schedule in that. We obviously have the flex schedule on Sunday. Later in the year, on Thanksgiving, NBC will have its normal night game on Thanksgiving. And this year, differently, we have the opportunity for Amazon Prime to have the Friday Black Friday game. So that's a new twist there as well. And as of course later in the end when we have some get into the playoffs, Peacock has one of the playoff games. So there's that. And then here's our final games. Sunday night, Dallas at New York. That's a NFC East matchup. And then, of course, Monday Night Football on ABC and ESPN is Buffalo at the Jets, and the world will see how Aaron Rodgers plays as a New York Jet. So, and that's an AFC East matchup. So you have two major matchups on Sunday and Monday night, two clearly marquee games, and we'll see how that whole thing shakes out from that standpoint. Interestingly enough, as we look through this, we saw a lot of college sports, plus the U.S. Open, plus Monday Night Football. All is on Charter. Unless you're a Charter subscriber, you can't get it. Okay, so let's take a moment and give you a couple of hacks if you're a Charter and you can't find it. Okay, so here's Charter versus Disney. What to do. All right, you can take a free test 1 week, a YouTube TV Fubo TV or Hulu TV Live. Those are your best bets. They look just like cable. You can download them. If you have a smart TV, you can download the app on your smart TV. Again, it's a free 1 week. You can rotate them if you like, maybe two or three of them over till the Charter and Disney situation get resolved. Those are your best bets to get what you want in the way of watching all of the action this week. So by all means, as I said before, you've got a 7-day trial for them. Wouldn't be a bad idea to download them to your phone, your tablet, and have it ready just in case you want to see it, and you can easily project it onto your or mirror screen it onto your big screen TV, or as I said, if you have a smart TV, there shouldn't be a problem. Or for $30-$40, you can go out and get a Roku stick or a Fire Stick and make it really simple. Just plug it into an HDMI, port in your TV, and then poof, you're already set to go. All right. Now, if you have rabbit ears, which are cheap to buy, or you can go get a flat antenna, they cost about the same, which in the $20-$25 range. Then the best hack is to go ahead and get Sling TV with rabbit ears. That Sling TV is much less expensive than is Hulu and YouTube TV and Fubo. So it's a good combination. You'll get your ESPN stations. You'll get the all the regional networks and networks like ACC Network, SEC Network, Big 12, and not Big 12. I'm sorry, Pac-12 and the Big 10, all on Sling. So by all means, check that out as well. So those are our little best bet hacks to get you through that problem with the folks at Charter and Disney battling it out. All right, so let's do one last quick recap of what is going on this week. Tonight, Apple TV, and there you have there. Apple TV has the Friday night game of the week, and it's Cincinnati and St. Louis. So that is your Friday night game on Apple TV. You've got college football, as we said, both on the Big Ten Network and on FS1. Let's see, make sure we're right on that. Yes, 7:30 on here it is. And I said FS1, but it's ESPN2. So there it is. Indiana State, Indiana on Big Ten Network, and Illinois, Kansas on ESPN. The noon games tomorrow. There's your noon games. Number 10 Notre Dame, NC State on ABC. You got Nebraska, Colorado. That's a noon game. Gus Johnson on Fox. And then you've got Utah, Baylor. That's an ESPN game with Bob McShusen and RG3. Here's your 3:30 games. Texas A&M, Miami, Michigan, entertaining UNLV, Iowa State. Prime time on the East Coast. Texas Tech against Oregon on Fox. You got Texas, Alabama. That game's going to be on ESPN. The late games, Stanford at USC on Fox. California, entertaining Auburn. That game on ESPN. And then Arizona State hosting Oklahoma State, and that game is on FS1. U.S. Open, men's finals and women's finals. Women's final tomorrow on ESPN. Men's finals on Sunday, ESPN. And then regional football action in the first week of the NFL on CBS and on Fox. Late games on obviously NBC with Dallas, Philadelphia. And let's get those games up for you. Late games. There we go. Dallas Giants and Buffalo and the Jets. Okay, so there's your schedule for the entire for the entire weekend. Okay. Okay. Thanks, guys, for hanging around. We had a lot of fun. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I do. And we will be back on Monday, 10 a.m. Hope that you have a wonderful weekend, a safe weekend. And until then, you take care of yourself, gang, because we want to see you back here as early and as often as possible. Okay. Take care.